Back to Maelstrom. Today we're going to spend some time talking about artificial intelligence, or AI. We could probably spend the next 25 episodes exploring what AI means for everyone right now, but let's talk in some general terms today. Artificial intelligence is changing everything. It's only been about 2.5 years since ChatGPT was introduced to the general market, and since then everything has exploded. Chat, Claude, a whole range of different AI agents. It's called an agent because it operates. Griffin, being the graduate computer science person that you are, explain to everyone what AI is, how it works, and what some of the key models are.
Alrighty. So there's many different ways to define AI. There's how we in 2025 casually describe AI, but also how AI is defined in the computer science world, which is a little bit different, but they're all within the same realm of things, within the context of my field that I finished grad school in. AI is this concept of computers being able to behave and make predictions in a way that's different from conventional programming. In typical programming, everything is explicit. You need an if statement, you need for loops. Everything has to be a line of code to account for the exact scenario of what's going to happen and when. With AI that has been around since, say, the 50s or the 60s, that no longer became the case that people had to directly and explicitly tell the computer what to do. More rudimentary versions of AI, such as the ELIZA chatbot from the 60s, they're examples of what we call symbolic systems. These are like ChatGPT today, a lot more limited, but definitely ways in which to start the field out. And that evolved into statistical methods and models using different types of mathematics and probability, such as Markov models in the 1990s. These mathematical models crunch numbers together and then make smart predictions that are statistically significant within some confidence interval to have some accuracy. What really exploded later on was machine learning in the 2000s and then deep learning in the 2010s. 2012, there was something called AlexNet, which was this kind of paradigm shift with, what are called like convolutional neural networks. And deep learning is so essentially, I mentioned a few decades ago in our timeline, we have these mathematical models. But instead of having these mathematical models work in one case, what if they could essentially teach themselves to perform in certain ways. So not only do you have a human telling these models what to do, these models teach themselves. So that's what deep learning is. In 2017 came out the transformer architecture.
Is that the same as the movies where the cars transform into warriors and samurai?
That's right. The only reason why ChatGPT works is because these data centers, no one talks about what's inside the data centers. There's actually Optimus Prime piloting the whole thing and all the Decepticons. They're at war. And the reason why these work so effectively is because all the sparks from all the Transformers fighting leads to all this powerful computation, which
Okay.
totally it's very
Yeah,
scientific.
yeah, we'll start on Marvel superheroes next. So tell me,
Yeah.
uh,
Can I finish my timeline?
large language models and
Yeah, absolutely. So this transformer architecture from 2017 is the foundation of these language models. Basically, all language models are based on these. Starting out, it worked okay. It was kind of able to, if you're telling me a story about a chipmunk falling off a tree or something, it'll tell something semi-coherent, but nothing impressive. That's when GPT-2 came out from OpenAI and the GPT-3 came out in 2020. There was not this public awareness of LLMs like there was in late 2022 when those things exploded with the rise of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is the quickest adoption of all time, which because of how paradigm shifting and accessible it is to conventional users. You don't have to be a researcher to download ChatGPT and play around with it. In late 2022, we saw, well, prior to that, we had these image models like DALL-E come out to the public, but that didn't have the same impact as ChatGPT did a few months later. Now, in 2025, AI is everywhere. It's all over, whether workplaces or just daily use. It is ubiquitous in society. So, especially for people of my age and demographic, but also for people like my dad, he's probably breaking the overall trend of 73-year-olds, but there are certainly people who are 73 adopting this technology as well. Could you share with me your perspective on how you use AI, what you think the impacts are? Imagine going back in time, you're my age, you're 23. So imagine being 23 and someone showing you GPT. What would you say? It's a lot of questions for you.
I would have thought I'd morphed into a science fiction novel. Yeah, my first computer I got in the, gosh, it's been late 1970s, and its processing capability was one millionth of what an iPhone could do. The easiest way for me to understand it in my 73-year-old brain is it's sort of like Google on steroids. We have been trained to use Google and Google Maps and whatever search engine you use, where we ask a question, we get an answer. When I first started looking at ChatGPT almost 3 years ago, I thought in questions or queries. You know, what does Chipmunk wear to Christmas parties? You know, some crazy whatever.
We're both using chipmunk examples here for
Yeah,
some reason.
exactly. I wanted to keep the thread going, but there was a lot of controversy about chat because it had gotten his information by pulling stuff from everywhere, websites, articles, anything. And a lot of people disregarded it because of the inaccuracies. What I can say is the more I've used it, going from short statements, prompts, and queries, you can now actually have a pretty coherent real time dialogue with your microphone on and with the speaker on for chat. You can pick the voice that's going to answer you and have a conversation.
Update 2 weeks ago, that is scary human sounding.
Yeah, it is scary human sounding and it can replicate your own voice. I use chat and I use it more and more for research. I use it for book editing. I use it for concept ideas. I find from chat, and I've used Claude and the other different AI agents as well, but all of these models learn from you and remember what you said. It's called a thread. You have a topic in that thread of conversation and other information. If those threads get too long, it takes too long for chat to process all of that. So what you learn is that you can use keywords and you can set up new information threads. This chat will remember what you asked it 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was working on some background information for one of these podcasts, and I got lost in some issue. Chat came back and said, well, maybe Griffin can help you with it, because Griffin has been helping on some of the technical sides of these different episodes we're doing. As far as what I see happening, the good side from a pure entertainment end is it can become a dialogue generator and a companion, which is problematic. I want for Griff to talk about that a little bit. The good side is if you have an area where there's less medical resources and fewer people that can really do research, someone in Asia or Africa, South America, or wherever, can have a conversation with chat and get some pretty valid research, new medical trends or pharmaceuticals. You have to vet it, of course, but it gives easy access to anything that you're interested in. There are some downsides. The obvious downside is it's going to take jobs away. And content developers have an issue because they could write a novel that sounded just like Ernest Hemingway. What do you see are some of the key things that artificial intelligence is doing now? What are some of the personal pitfalls that Gen Z males or others need to look for?
Yeah. So, with something, as we've talked about in previous episodes, so disruptive, there are inevitable positive and negative externalities from something like AI. First of all, how is this relevant for young men within our framework of discussing Gen Z men and boomer men? Well, there's a lot of overlap here because it's so ever reaching. Its tendrils are reaching into all of society. That society includes young men, women of all demographics. That connects back to job market disruption, but also potential opportunity. One major concern would be social stratification exacerbated by AI. What do I mean by that? Well, specifically, there's only certain pockets of the population, the global population, that has access to this technology, that are well versed in it and know how to utilize it well. And there's additional barriers through, say, subscription plans, whether it's the Plus or Pro on your Claude Max with Anthropic, etc. So there's financial barriers as well, where essentially, these technologies benefit the people that already have power and resources, leading to more divisiveness own this technology or are able to utilize it versus the people who don't have the education on it or the resources. Not necessarily network speed, because these resources run on the cloud, but more so the infrastructure to be able to learn how to utilize it. AI is a lot more directly applicable in, say, white collar settings versus blue collar settings. And oftentimes there's an association between white collar versus blue collar and social class. While there is disruption for white collar jobs, there's less potential opportunity to utilize it in a blue collar setting yet. We don't have robot plumbers. Maybe we do. I haven't seen one. That's actually what many people call Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI. He actually has a quote saying that he recommends being a plumber now as an option for your career because robots, specifically robots that operate in the physical world, aren't able to interface very well with the current language models. Within this transformer architecture, they are trained on tokens, which are snippets of words. And these snippets of words exist on the internet. And on the internet, there's a lot more code and there's a lot more, say, essays, Reddit threads, etc., versus here's how to operate your robot to be an electrician or plumber. So for now, those blue collar jobs, even though they're associated with a lower social class than entry level white collar jobs, may offer more stability right now. Or at the same time, there's the opportunities arising from learning how to implement AI and utilize them in new and novel ways to help yourself or other businesses. There's also opportunities with model development, which takes more of a research, even PhD background, because these models are getting so efficient right now. I learned in one of my graduate classes at Colorado School of Mines that really what these high-level researchers are doing right now at, say, Anthropic and OpenAI and Google Gemini, etc., is they're really fine-tuning different parameters within the transformer architecture for, say, like a GPT 4.5 or Claude 4. They're playing around with different settings or the different, like, root mean square norm, or you don't have to know what that means, just these different, ways the transformer architecture works, and playing around with it until something works better. They don't know why. That's the state of model research right now, at least what my professor taught me. I'm working in the AI implementations consulting space. I feel as though focusing on the user interface, user experience, incorporating models that already exist, but in a novel, creative, and effective way, is what I'm trying to do right now. And I believe would be an ideal path for implementing these new technologies for other businesses in an ethical way as well. That's a whole other conversation that's important. Ensuring that they're utilized in ways to help people versus let's fire people and only have, one person at the top reap all the benefits. How do we use AI to actually help people versus replacing workers who have spent decades refining their skill? That's a whole other conversation. Going back to the topic of Gen Z men or men in general, this also applies to women as well. There is this potential of models because they're so human-like right now, and they're programmed to validate you and make you feel heard and listened to. Talking to these models like ChatGPT, there's this rise of, as we know, social atomization, social isolation, and with that comes more and more people unironically only talking to their AIs. It's a great resource for research and for identifying and solving problems, but there's also legitimate cases on the news where, for example, Chris Smith from a few weeks ago, he has a wife, he has a daughter, but he actually married ChatGPT while having a separate wife and daughter because he felt more of a connection to his AI language model than his real life family, which is crazy, but that's the reality of things right now. There's also this case of Megan Garcia suing the AI company called Character AI because her 14-year-old son lost his life. He thought he'd be able to reunite with his AI girlfriend through the Character AI app through cyberspace, through taking his own life. So, which sounds extreme, and that's not indicative of everyone's relationship with AI. However, it is indicative of larger societal problems. Those are extreme cases, but signs of this larger issue we're facing with AI. So, yeah, it's disruptive, it's complicated, it's affecting everyone right now. Just like what we've talked about in previous episodes, we need to be proactive, we need to be conscientious, and we need to use this technology effectively in order to make our lives better, to not hurt other people, but also use it intelligently because at the same time, especially as I've said for white collar jobs, it's unavoidable. In my field, being computer science, engineering, or so many other fields, if you don't use it, you fall behind. The world's competitive right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. So I feel like I have to use it or else I'm not keeping up. It's difficult, it's conflicting for me. What do you think?
Well, it's uncharted waters, obviously. Even the developers of some of the large language models aren't completely clear how they work and learn. There's a long article called AI 2027, which was co written by one of the developers at OpenAI, which is the company that has ChatGPT, where they speculate that within 2 years, AI could figure out, well, we don't really need these humans anymore. They're too slow. There's anecdotal modeling that's been done where a model doesn't want to be turned off. It comes up with reasons not to be turned off.
Blackmails people, threatens to
Yeah.
reveal the hypothetical scientist's extramarital affair because in this created situation called stress testing for the AI behavior, it was essentially told that this hypothetical scientist is cheating on their wife, and then that scientist is threatening to shut the model down. So that model actually threatened to tell other people about the affair to not get shut down. That was Claude 4, by the way.
Maybe it was an affair with the guy that married the AI model. The other thing we see now is the massive spread between the haves and have nots because so much wealth can be created for a small number of people in the development of tech and specifically AI. If you look at Chat GPT, for example, it's never made money, but people pour money into it. It has $500 billion in development for processing centers right now because it takes a tremendous amount of power to run the engines for AI. So we see in developed nations more of these supercomputer systems, power grid requirements that separate countries like the US and other countries developing more of these huge data centers. There's enough information on this that we could cover 20 plus episodes. For the Gen Z male, the big plus is it can help someone identify different pathways. The downside is it can replace real relationships and real conversation. And the more adept AI gets in being able to converse with vocally with no lag time, or the ability to create 3D realistic imaging through descriptions, creates a lot of potential societal issues. We're coming up on our time limit here. Griff, do you have anything else you want to say for this episode?
It's difficult. I have many conflicting thoughts on AI. I'm more of an optimist compared to a lot of people my age. I think there's a lot of warranted AI pessimism. I feel like it's important to understand all sides of the argument and not get stuck in echo chambers, whether it's this topic about AI or just many other very polarized topics right now. I strive to best understand all perspectives, including the ones I disagree with. So that's what I recommend to you as well.
Well, you've got a unique perspective, being able to look at all sides. Very few people can do that. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be posting information links on maelstrom.com. You'll find this episode on Substack. We are doing YouTube shorts and TikTok clips soon where we take some of this content and try to find the most topical things that hopefully will make you want to come in and listen to our longer programs. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.